Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Horror Stories. I know many of you use these episodes to fall asleep, so before you drift off, I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the episodes. Story 1. I work as a delivery driver. It may not be the dream job, but it gives me flexibility and most of the time keeps the lights on. Usually it's picking up food and taking it to the destination. Nothing especially exciting, nothing too weird. Sure, sometimes a peculiar customer shows up or there's an unusual request, but generally it's nothing worth talking about. Or at least that's what I thought, until a customer turned my life upside down. It was right during the dinner rush, juggling several orders in the app. Around 7:30 p.m., I got a delivery from a nice Italian restaurant across town. The customer had ordered pasta, salad, and tiramisu. Definitely a fancier menu than my usual runs of burgers and pizza. The address was in a quiet residential neighborhood, the kind with trimmed lawns and cars that seemed to never know dirt. When I arrived at the house, it was already night. The porch light was on and the place looked pretty cozy. I grabbed the insulated bag and walked up to the door. I knocked and a man in his late 30s opened almost instantly. He was smiling, maybe a little too much. "Hi," he said. "Thanks for bringing this so fast. You must be slammed today." "Yeah, it's been busy," I replied as I handed him the bag. He stayed in the doorway, holding the order without stepping back inside. "Hey," he added, "you've got a great voice. Have you ever done voice work? Radio or something?" It was a weird compliment, but I took it as a joke. "No, I just deliver food. You should think about it. Anyway, thanks again. Have a good night." I thanked him, turned around, and headed back to the car. The interaction seemed strange to me, but nothing alarming. I finished my shift and didn't give it another thought until the next day. The following afternoon, I got a notification from a dating app I barely used anymore. Someone had messaged me. But what caught my attention wasn't the message itself. It was the profile photo. It was him, the overly friendly customer from the night before. His message was simple. "Hey, didn't we meet last night?" I hadn't given him my name or any personal information. How had he found me? My profile didn't even have a clear photo of my face. It was an old image from a hike with sunglasses on. I decided not to reply. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe he wasn't even sure it was me. But in the following days, the messages kept coming. "You seem cool. Let's go out sometime." "Don't ignore me. I know you saw this." "Are you really going to pretend we didn't meet?" It was unsettling, but I thought that if I didn't respond, sooner or later he'd get tired. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. A week later, I saw that he had started following me on Instagram. My account was private, but there was his request, accompanied by a message. "You really need to work on being more approachable." That was enough. I blocked him on the dating app and on Instagram, hoping that would be the end of it. But no. 2 days later, I received a direct message on Facebook. "Why are you ignoring me?" I thought we had connected. At that point, the unease turned into real fear. I blocked him again, but it seemed that every door I closed, he found another to slip through. One night during another shift, I noticed a car following me. It wasn't tailgating or doing anything too obvious, but every turn I made, the car stayed behind. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Then I started taking random detours to see if I could lose it. It didn't work. My blood ran cold when I realized the car was the same make and model as the one in his profile photos. I pulled into a busy gas station and stayed in the car, pretending to check my phone. The car idled on the street for a few minutes before leaving. I kept telling myself it couldn't be him, but the strange feeling wouldn't go away. The next morning, I decided to tell my brother everything. He's the kind of guy who doesn't tolerate anyone's nonsense, and I thought that if he rode along with me for a while, I'd feel safer when I explained everything to him. The delivery, the messages, the following, and the car outside the gas station. His face turned serious. "That's not normal," he said. "You're not doing another delivery alone." I felt relieved and at the same time a bit apprehensive. My brother can be overly protective, and I worried he'd make things worse, but I didn't want to argue. That night, he climbed into the passenger seat as we headed out to deliver. I won't deny that his presence eased some of the tension. On the way to the next delivery, we passed the same gas station where I had stopped the night before. My stomach dropped when I saw, unmistakably, his car parked by the pumps. I slowed down to confirm it was the same vehicle. "It's him, isn't it?" my brother said, unbuckling his seatbelt and already with his hand on the handle. "I'm going to talk to that guy." "No," I grabbed his arm. "Don't do it. It's not worth it." "Are you telling me you're going to let this creep get away with following you? What if he's planning something worse?" "Please," I begged. "We're going to handle it, but not like this. Let's go to the police station." He hesitated, still with his hand on the door, but finally let out a frustrated sigh. "All right, but if I see him again, we're not running." Once there, I told the duty officer everything: the delivery, the messages, the stalking, and the fact that I had seen his car again. My brother corroborated it, adding what he himself had observed. The officer listened carefully and took notes as we spoke. "This is serious," he said. "You did the right thing coming in. We'll investigate immediately." Filing the report was both empowering and unsettling, but having my brother by my side made it bearable. The officer assured us they were going to investigate and asked me to call immediately if anything else happened. That night, my brother insisted on staying over at my place. I was grateful, but sleep didn't come easily. I couldn't stop imagining scenarios of what might have happened if my brother hadn't been with me. Or if we had stopped at the gas station the next day, I started taking measures to protect myself. I changed my usernames on social media, tightened privacy settings, and started sharing my location with my brother when I worked the night shifts. I also began varying my routes home and avoided accepting orders in the neighborhood where he lived. For weeks I was on guard, jumping at every notification and checking the mirrors every time I drove. Little by little, the messages stopped. He seemed to have vanished. I don't know if the police scared him or if he found someone else to harass, but I haven't heard from him since. Looking back, it all sounds like a bad movie, but it made clear to me how vulnerable we can be, especially in jobs that put us face to face with strangers. Story 2. When I started delivering part-time, it was mostly to pay off some credit card debt and save for a summer trip. It wasn't a bad job, honestly. The flexibility fit my office hours, and I enjoyed those small moments of silence during the drives. I usually move around residential areas, with an office building or apartment complex here and there. But one Friday night, I accepted an order that turned out to be anything but ordinary. It was late, close to 9:30 p.m., and I had just finished a good streak of deliveries. I was already thinking about heading home when a high-paying order popped up in the app, with a generous tip included. The drop-off point was listed in an industrial area about 15 minutes away. Normally at that hour, I would pass on something like that, but the pay was tempting. Besides, I figured it might be someone working a night shift at a factory or warehouse. The drive started off well. The streets were almost empty, which I like. The city lights gave way to dimly lit roads, and after a while the sporadic street lights turned into long stretches of darkness. The GPS kept calling out directions, guiding me deeper into what felt like the middle of nowhere. By the time I took the last street, I was already second-guessing the decision. The industrial park looked abandoned. Most of the buildings were old and run down, with graffiti-covered facades. Broken windows stared like empty sockets, and some streetlights flickered. I pushed that bad feeling aside and focused on the task at hand. The GPS announced, "You have arrived at your destination." But all I could see was a huge crumbling warehouse. There were no signs of life, no lights, no parked cars, nothing to suggest that someone was waiting for their food. The address matched the one in the app, but it was hard to believe anyone lived or worked there. I parked a few yards from the building and watched it through the windshield, hesitating about what to do. I had already accepted the order. Canceling now could affect my rating, and I really needed that tip. So I did what I always do when something doesn't add up. I called the customer. The phone rang, and no one answered. That's when I saw them. Silhouettes, shadowy figures, standing by the edge of the building. I told myself it couldn't be real, that my eyes were playing tricks on me. But squinting, I made out at least 3 people, maybe more, hiding in the darkness. They didn't move. They were just there, watching me. I hit the door locks. Goosebumps rose on my skin when one of the figures stepped forward, slowly advancing into the beam of my headlights. He was tall, shirtless, wearing jeans 2 sizes too big, and he had something on his face. Maybe a mask or a bandana. In that moment, I decided I wasn't staying. I grabbed the phone to cancel the order and started backing out of the parking lot. That's when I heard an engine, a low vibrating rumble that grew louder. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw a dual-sport motorcycle approaching at full speed from behind. Its single headlight bobbed as the bike weaved erratically. The rider wore a helmet with a dark visor completely hiding his face. He skidded to a stop right behind my car, blocking my exit. My chest tightened. Panic set in. I had no way out. The only option was forward, toward the warehouse and the figures posted there. I shifted into drive and inched forward, hoping the motorcyclist would take the hint and move. Instead, he revved hard, leaning forward as if daring me to do something. The figures by the warehouse started moving, 3 masked men advancing toward the front of my car. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my hands hurt. I didn't want to find out what they had planned. I just wanted to get out of there. I shifted into reverse and slammed the gas. The car lurched backward. The motorcycle didn't stand a chance. My bumper hit it and sent it skidding to the side. The rider was thrown, rolled over the hood, and hit the ground. I didn't stop to check if he was okay. I put it back in first and shot out of there, tires screeching. In the mirror, I saw the other figures breaking into a run after me. One pulled something out of his pocket, maybe a weapon. My heart pounded as I pressed the accelerator, desperate to get away from that warehouse. When I reached a main avenue, I slowed just enough to grab the phone and dial 911. My voice was shaking as I explained what had happened. The dispatcher told me to head straight to the nearest police station, and that's what I did. When I arrived, I parked in front of the building and ran inside. I must have looked a mess. Hair stuck to my face, breath ragged. Even so, the officers were calm and professional. They took my statement, inspected the damage to the car, and promised to investigate. A few days later, I got a call from one of the officers. They had gone to the warehouse and found evidence that a gang was using the site as a base for stealing vehicles. Apparently, they were luring delivery drivers there with fake food orders, intending to assault them and take their cars. The officer praised my quick reflexes, but it didn't feel like a win to me. I couldn't stop replaying the scene in my head. What would have happened if I had hesitated, if I had gotten out of the car, if I hadn't managed to escape? Fixing the car was another blow. Repairing the damage from the collision with the motorcycle wasn't cheap, and I had to dip into the money I'd saved over months of deliveries to cover it. It hurt to watch that effort disappear, but I kept telling myself one thing: at least I was safe. That was the last time I accepted an order in an industrial area. A little extra money isn't worth your safety, and next time, if my gut tells me to leave, I won't think twice. Story 3. Working as a delivery driver doesn't demand much interaction beyond the basics, and that suits me perfectly. I'm a guy who values efficiency, and most nights I can stick to my routine without any surprises. That night I'd already been on the road for a few hours, hitting the usual spots: pizzerias, burger joints, Chinese takeout. Orders were coming in steadily but manageably, and I was making good time. It must have been a little after 8 p.m. when the app pinged me with a delivery not far from where I was. The customer had ordered a large pizza and a 6-pack of sodas, nothing out of the ordinary. The address was in a decent neighborhood, one of those older suburban areas where the houses have wide front lawns and long driveways. It wasn't far from the pizzeria, so I accepted the order and headed over. When I arrived, everything looked normal, the kind of place where you don't expect anything weird. I grabbed the insulated bag from the passenger seat, checked the name on the order, Michael, and walked up to the front door. I rang the bell and waited. After a few seconds, the door cracked open just enough for me to see a man's face peeking out. He looked to be in his late 40s with closely cropped hair and a neatly trimmed beard. He was grinning from ear to ear, maybe a bit too much, but I didn't think much of it at the time. "Hi, you got here just in time," he said, opening a little wider. "Here's your order," I replied, holding out the bag. He took it with one hand while keeping the other on the door. "Thanks, man. Oh, wait, I've got a tip for you. Come in for a second while I grab it." I hesitated. "That's not necessary. You can hand it to me right here." His smile faltered for just an instant before fixing itself back on his face. "Come on, it'll be a second." I left my wallet on the kitchen counter. "It's actually not allowed for me to go inside," I said, keeping my tone polite but firm. "Company policy is clear about that." Besides, something in the way he said it made me uncomfortable. He leaned against the frame, the smile now more forced than friendly. "Seriously, it's right there. Don't be weird." I shook my head and took a small step back. "Company policy. Thanks for understanding." For a moment, he just stared at me, narrowing his eyes. Then, without a word, he pushed the door farther open and gestured inside. The hallway was dimly lit, the kind of light that makes it hard to tell where the walls end and the shadows begin. "Look," he said, in a tone that had lost all friendliness. "I'm trying to give you a tip. Do you want it or not?" "I appreciate it, but I can't go in," I replied, stepping back again. That's when he grabbed my arm. It wasn't a hard squeeze, but it was enough to send a jolt of alarm through me. "Just take one step inside," he muttered, low and insistent. I yanked my arm free and stumbled back onto the porch. I said no. It came out louder than I intended, but I didn't care. The adrenaline was already running, and all I wanted was to get out of there. The man stepped onto the porch. His expression cooled. "I'm just trying to be nice," he spat, dripping sarcasm. "No need to be rude." I didn't respond. I turned and walked quickly toward the car. He stayed on the porch, watching me with that unsettling smile. As I got behind the wheel, he lifted his hand in a mocking little wave. "Have a good night," he said, with a cheerfulness so exaggerated it sounded fake. I started the engine and backed out of the driveway as fast as I could without drawing more attention. When I was at a safe distance, I pulled over and took a deep breath to steady myself. I took out my phone and reported the incident in the delivery app, detailing everything that had happened. They responded quickly, thanked me for the heads up, and assured me they had flagged the customer's account. It was a small relief, but the unease didn't go away entirely. The next day, I couldn't get the encounter out of my head. At first, it seemed so normal, so cordial. But the way he grabbed my arm and tried to force me inside wasn't just inappropriate. It was calculated. Later that week, I mentioned what happened to a good friend who, coincidentally, is a cop. I thought he'd laugh or tell me I was overreacting, but his face went serious as I told the story. "It's not just unsettling, it's dangerous," he said. "You should report it. If this guy has done something like this before, there might already be a record." I felt a little ridiculous about filing a report over what some would see as an awkward moment, but my friend insisted. "If he had the gall to try to get you inside, he'll try it again with someone else. And next time it could be worse." The next day I went to the local precinct and told them everything. The officer who took my statement nodded as I described the situation. When I mentioned the man's behavior, his insistence, the physical contact, that disturbing smile, they asked if I could provide the address and a description. "You're not the first to complain about that guy," the officer said. "We've got 2 more reports for harassment and inappropriate conduct linked to that address. We're building a case, but for now we haven't been able to charge him." My stomach turned. The idea that this man had a history of luring people in, that others had already been through similar situations, was deeply unsettling. I asked if there was anything else I could do. "We're building an active case against him," he replied. "Your statement is key. We may need you to testify if this goes to trial." The possibility of facing that guy again even in a courtroom, brought another wave of nerves, but I knew it was the right thing to do. If my experience could help prevent him from putting someone else at risk, I was willing to take that step. Before I left, the officer reassured me. "You did the right thing by coming in. We'll keep you informed on the progress, and we're going to flag his address in our system." I walked out of the station with a mix of relief and anxiety. That episode hadn't been an isolated, weird incident. It was part of a pattern, and I was probably one of several who narrowly avoided something worse. It's not a comforting thought, but at least now there's a chance to stop him. I'm relieved I got out of that house without a scratch, though knowing that man is still out there, with other complaints against him. Lingers in my mind that delivering food may seem routine, but experiences like that remind you danger can be lurking behind any door. Story 4. I've been a delivery driver for almost 7 years. There's something peaceful about driving under the stars. With empty streets and few distractions, most customers just want their food and hardly say a word. But in all this time, I've seen it all. People opening the door with only a towel, homes so cluttered I couldn't find a place to set the order down, and even requests so strange they made me question humanity's priorities. Weirdness comes standard in this line of work. Of all the odd, uncomfortable, or downright absurd moments I've experienced, this one stuck with me. It wasn't just weird. It was one of those experiences that make you completely rethink nighttime deliveries. I don't remember if it was a Tuesday or Wednesday, but around 10:30 p.m., I got a request for an apartment complex across town. Nothing out of the ordinary. 2 burritos and a side of chips. The app said, Building 4, Apartment 117, with a note to leave it at the door. Simple. When I pulled into the complex, I saw it was one of those huge ones, with identical buildings. The parking lot was poorly lit, and it was hard to make out the building numbers. After circling twice, I finally found Building 4 at the back, the entrance half hidden by a tree. I parked and grabbed the bag. As I walked toward the door, I glanced over the lot out of habit. There were a few cars scattered around, and one, a black sedan, was parked at the far end. I let it go and focused on finding the right apartment. 117 was at the foot of a dark staircase. I crouched, set the bag neatly on the doormat, and took a photo for the app. Just as I was uploading the image to confirm the delivery, a tingling ran up the back of my neck, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. I straightened up and started heading back to my car, keeping an eye on the black sedan I'd noticed earlier. Only now it was much closer. Just a few spaces away from mine, I narrowed my eyes, and for a moment, I could swear I saw movement inside. The headlights were off and the windows were so tinted it was impossible to tell how many people were inside. Something wasn't right. When I reached my car, I got behind the wheel and hit the locks out of habit. My phone buzzed with a new order notification. I was about to accept it when the sound of a car door opening broke the silence. I looked toward the black sedan and saw a figure approaching. The guy wore a hoodie, the drawstrings pulled so tight you couldn't really see his face. He wasn't running. His steps sounded soft in the quiet parking lot. A knot rose in my stomach. I started the engine, ready to leave, when I heard a few sharp knocks on the window. I turned my head and there he was, pressed up against the passenger side glass. His face hidden by the hood, one hand flat against the glass, fingers splayed slightly. I lowered the window just a crack, enough to talk. "Can I help you?" "Hey," he said. "I missed the bus. Can you give me a ride a few miles up?" My instinct was to say no, but I didn't want to provoke him. "I'm sorry, I can't. I'm working." He leaned in a little more, planting his other hand on the window frame. "Come on, man, it's a quick ride. It's late and I'm stranded." "I really can't," I replied firmly. "I've got more deliveries to make." His relaxed attitude vanished in an instant. His expression hardened and his hand slid on the glass, leaving a faint smear. "You sure?" he asked. "I'm sure," I answered, careful to keep my voice steady. He stepped back, and for a moment I thought he'd leave, but instead he slapped the hood with his palm. "Don't be an idiot," he spat. "I just need a ride." I didn't respond. My hand was already on the gear shift and I started backing out. Before I could react, the guy slid his hands through the small gap in the window and forced it down, pushing the glass until it was fully open. I froze, not knowing what to do. He shoved half his body into the car, reached for the shifter and put it in P. Behind me, the black sedan started its engine and flicked on its headlights. In the rearview mirror, I watched it creep forward until it was inches from my bumper, blocking any escape route. By then, I was in a panic. Another figure got out of the sedan, slamming the door. He moved toward my window. The hood made his face almost entirely shadowed. The one at the passenger side started talking in an unsettlingly casual tone. "Get out of the car. We just want to talk." Every fiber of my being screamed not to comply. "I'm not getting out." His fake calm evaporated. "Don't make this harder," he snapped. And before I realized it, he started climbing through the open window. He already had half his torso inside the car. I panicked and slammed the horn. The blare tore through the quiet of the night. The man winced but didn't stop. He let out a growl. "Turn it off or you're going to regret it." As I laid on the horn with more frenzy, the door of the apartment I had just delivered to flew open. A burly man, shirtless, rushed out, his voice booming. "Let him go. He's just delivering the food I ordered. It's fine, let him go." The one climbing into my car froze, looking toward the man shouting. The guy at my window hesitated too. The shirtless man advanced with his fists clenched and his eyes locked on them. I said, "Back off." Both of them stepped back. The one on the passenger side slid out of my car and retreated toward the sedan, and without a word, they tore off into the night, their taillights disappearing down the street. My savior jogged up to my car. "Are you okay?" he asked, his tone now much softer. I nodded, trembling, gripping the steering wheel like my life depended on it. "You should report it," he added. "Those guys have been prowling around here for too long." I thanked him and left, not stopping until I reached a big gas station. My hands were shaking and I could barely breathe. The next day I flagged the incident in the app and shared it with other drivers. Part of me felt bad for the people who live in that area and just want to order something different for dinner or treat themselves late at night. Not everyone there is connected to those two, and I hate the idea of turning someone's innocent order into red alert. But I couldn't risk something like that happening again, to me or anyone else. That episode became a hard-to-forget lesson. Trust your gut, keep the doors locked, and sometimes a blaring horn and a bit of luck can save your life. If these delivery nightmares gave you goosebumps, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe for more stories that will leave you speechless. Have you experienced something unsettling at work or as a customer? Tell it in the comments. I'd love to read it. Share this video with a friend who needs a reminder to always trust their instincts. And yes, kindness opens doors, but keep everything safe and professional. Thanks for watching and see you in the next nightmare.